Hello and welcome back to the 106th edition of the Bebo Knows podcast. This is your host, Brian Bullock, and we have a little twist today. Normally, we're doing a sports betting theme or sports theme, but today I wanted to twist things up a little bit and go to another one of my passions, which is breweries. And with me today, I have a couple of local folks from Rabid Brewing. We have Raiye and Tobias. Welcome to the podcast, Raiye and Tobias.
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
Hey, Brian.
Good. It's nice to have you on, and thanks for everything you guys do with the community and everything you guys are doing to entertain us while we're stuck in quarantine. Appreciate it. So I wanted to give the chance to, before we get started, to give you guys the chance to introduce yourselves. Basically who you guys are, how long you've been brewing, favorite beers that you like to, favorite beers or styles you like to brew, inspirations behind your beers, whether it be person, places, things, whatever. So feel free to, whoever wants to take the lead on that one.
Well, I guess we can kind of start from the beginning, and really it starts with Ray being a craft beer fan before I was. She had learned the craft from her stepfather, and then when we started dating, I made the mistake of leaving her at home while I went to go and get some beer, and walked in the house with a 12er of Miller Lite. So to which she just looked at me lovingly and said, "No, honey." Shook her head and said, "No, come on, I'm taking you back to the liquor store."
I think that was probably the first of many, 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 many times since then that I've given you a certain look.
And shook her head and said, "No, honey." That seems to be a theme in our lives. But yeah, so we went back to the liquor store and ended up with some Three Floyds beer. And Three Floyds really ended up being an early inspiration. After that, once she taught me how to actually appreciate craft beer, I kind of got really excited about it and started hitting up the liquor store and buying every single craft beer I could find, which, at that point in time, your local store probably only had maybe 8, different craft beers. This was back in about around 2010. And and so that became, I grew to really love it. And then I had a real sense of what it was that I wanted to taste in a beer. And my father used to brew beer when I was much younger. And so I called him up and asked him if I could borrow his stuff and make some beer. So we immediately made an Imperial IPA, which we called Hair of the God.
Which, I don't know if you remember this, but part of the reason it was named Hair of the God is it was brewed the day after my birthday. And I was super, super hungover. And you might also know this, but that's not a very frequent occasion for me. So it wasn't a very fun brew day for me, I remember. All those malty smells in the kitchen, not so happy.
Didn't like that, huh?
It was good beer, though.
Yeah, it was. It was excellent. So then, I decided I never wanted to bottle again after that incident. So it was just too much of a pain in the ass. So I hooked us up. I went out and purchased some kegging rig, and then next thing you know, I'm making 5-10 gallon batches all the time, and starting to bring 5 gallons of beer to parties and stuff like that. And then eventually we had one of the brewers, the head brewer at the time, from One Trick Pony, came over and hung out with us, drank the beer, and said, "Hey man, this is like brewery ready." At which point I'd like to say that Ray pretty much shot up out of her chair, went upstairs, grabbed her laptop, and started writing up a business plan.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, and then here we are.
And here we are, a couple of years later. Well, I mean, it was many years later from that point.
It took an awful lot longer, I think, than any of us anticipated. And some of that was just the nature of the beast. If opening a brewery were easy, everybody would do it. And so, there were definitely a lot of regulatory hurdles and just all kinds of hurdles to get through.
Yeah.
But then I think just because we don't do anything unless it's extra fun, we had the additional joy of having our landlord and general contractor go bankrupt during the process.
Yikes.
And
yeah,
so
not just bankrupt, but they were investigated by the FBI and they were forced to shut down. It was insane, really.
Wow. Yeah, that's not something that like you could really plan for.
No,
exactly.
Really.
So what would you say? Like, can you get into more in depth about some of the obstacles that you guys had in getting Rabid off the ground?
I think the biggest thing was like not really knowing which pieces were coming up next until we got another piece done. If we had a clearer picture of what we could do all at once, then we probably would have been able to do it a little bit faster. But working with what we had and the information that we were being given at the time, that's we did a pretty good job.
It also, I would say, two of the other kind of big hurdles, and I don't want to throw anybody under any buses, but they were really big hurdles for us to overcome, and some of it was our own fault, just for being lay people. One would have been working with our local sanitary basin district. Anybody who's in this industry knows that they have to be BFFs with the water treatment people. And that was really challenging, mainly because I think we were the first brewery to try to open up in our local district. And so they just weren't familiar with what that entailed. They weren't familiar with the fact that we were really mostly putting good things down the drain. And so they were doing their job by operating in abundance of caution. But sometimes that was really to our detriment because they were like, okay, well, we hear what you say about how beer only has yeast and hops and grain in it, but prove it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that kind of fell to us, and that took a long time. And what was cool about that in the end, though, is we were able to help pave the way for a couple of other places to open up.
Yeah, and unfortunately, one of the other breweries that was opening at the same time was Evil Horse down in Crete. And when the district came back to us and said, hey, you guys, you need to actually go out. You need to pay us, what was it, like $17,500 they wanted for their first license just to open the sewers for us. And so I had to basically crash course myself in, in our biological demand output of, our wastewater. So I had to become like a wastewater expert in like a matter of 3 days. Wow. And I had to calculate some numbers, and then I had to get them verified by an engineer on top of that, all of which I did. I was able to reduce that $17,500 fee down to like, what was it, $2,500 or something like that?
No, it was still about $8,000.
Still $8,000, but it was significant.
Yeah.
Evil Horse, on the other hand, ended up paying about $18,000. And that just would have killed us. They had some funding, which was pretty good for them, but man, that would have just destroyed us. So it's stuff like that, that you just don't anticipate when you're putting this whole plan together, and then you're halfway through the thing, and it's like, whoa, hey, hello.
Yeah. No, I remember hearing you guys talk about the water companies before, and I think Vice had that same problem too. They were in a really bad location, or like had some crap to do, and now they're closed. But that's besides the point. So you guys had mentioned some of the your competitors. You were mentioning One Trick Pony. So one thing I always found fascinating about the beer industry is how close of a community is, despite you being, competitors, because you're competing for, people to drink your beers, but yet you guys are like at the same time this really close knit family. Can you, from your perspective, why do you think that is?
Go
Well,
ahead.
so it's interesting that you use the word competitor because although I recognize as a business person that, yes, they're absolutely the competition, I never really think of them that way.
Okay.
You know, we've often referred to One Trick Pony as our very God brewery. And, we collaborate and cooperate with each other in so many ways. We are stronger because of each other. And it's not because we are trying to compete against each other, but because when we band together and each provide a unique end user experience through our beer and our branding and our atmosphere, we provide a really rich situation here on the South Side. When we started doing the Dixie Highway Brewery Trail, that I think that launched just a little over a year ago, it completely revolutionized the way we started seeing new customers because there were tons of people who were really familiar with Open Outcry up on the north end of things, but who'd never been out to us or to Evil Horse and vice versa. And if all of us were, backbiting and looking at each other like competition, that kind of collaboration wouldn't be possible.
Okay.
From my end, I mean, are there certain things that you don't tell anybody? Well, sure. It's still business. You still have to have your trade secrets and all that. But I honestly feel like we are stronger when we unite, in certain really key ways.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And to add to it, I think that it also plays into the shape of the marketplace today. The beer marketplace is a place now where everybody goes to get a variety of experience. They're not going there because they're a Coors Light guy and they want to drink Coors Light all the time. They want to go to breweries to experience many new different beers and have a good time with each one of them. So, then you want to go and you want to hit different breweries and what's their flavor profile? What are the unique things about this place? What's the experience there? And that's what everybody in the craft beer marketplace is seeking, is a new experience. So it really plays into that. We're all helping each other, helping to really fund, we are all the currency of this marketplace and we're helping to fund this new experience, unique experiences, new experiences all the time. And people really love that a lot. And people also really love seeing people, breweries collaborate. They get excited when they see a collaboration beer. Oh man,
Yeah.
These guys all worked together and made the beer. That's a really cool thing. And people get excited about that.
Yeah, so I actually just thought about that. So when people do collaboration beers, like how hard is it for like just one person take over? Because like it seems like you're going to be dealing with a lot of egos, a lot of ideas. Like, have you guys done many collaboration beers? And if so, like what are your experiences with that?
So yeah, I mean, obviously you could predict, that kind of situation, but I think that most people in the beer marketplace are pretty relaxed.
Okay.
We just had we just made our first collaboration beer.
That's not true. Sorry.
All right. We recently made a collaboration beer with the Dixie Highway. The Dixie Highway Trail, we did our first anniversary stout.
Okay.
And it's rather unfortunate that we're in this situation. We can't have the party we were planning and all of that stuff. But it was a neat process. There were like 4 brewers that got together and hung out, drank some gin and tonics because we're all up to our ears in beer and we needed a break. But we sat around and we just kind of talked out the recipe and just like the general idea of what it should look like. And then I came back home and I basically put together a skeleton recipe and said, okay, this is kind of what we talked about. Here's how I would like to see it. And you guys, do what you want with it. What do you think? And also, this is going to be brewed over at Evil Horse, so Steve's got to modify it to work with his system, and so we went through all those steps, and and now we have a beautiful stout sitting there, waiting to be had. So I don't know what the release plan is yet for that stout, but it's going to be fun.
Okay. Now, from the birth of an idea, I guess it probably depends on the style. From a birth of an idea to the actual release of it, how much time is in between?
Oh wow, that's so. It depends because I can basically at the beginning of a week, on a Monday morning, get up a recipe in about 15 minutes. To half an hour, and then by the end of the week we're brewing it because I've purchased all the ingredients and the hops have been shipped across the country and are at the door. So at the end of the week, then we'll brew it. The brewing process, we spend one day really doing all the brewing work, and then it sits in a fermenter for about 2 weeks. Then we keg it up and we're good. Then clean the fermenters and we're good to go.
Okay.
So that's about how long. So approximately 3 weeks.
Okay. And when you guys have these new beers, do you already have do you have an artist on retainer to design the logos for these, or do you if you guys are releasing a can, or is it kind of just a generic?
Okay, so we've got two ways of doing that right now, and one is we do have an artist, and her name is Annabelle Popa, and she does all of our special art, but all of the beer logos that you see, I'm actually the one who does that.
Okay. Yeah. So you had like you were mentioning before, you had to become an expert in quite a different amount of fields that you probably weren't anticipating, or maybe you didn't. I mean, you might have anticipated some, but not others. I'm sure that one of you is good with numbers, right?
Yeah, that would be Ray.
Okay, so I mean, you have to have at least one numbers person.
Yeah, she's far better than I am with numbers. Yes.
Okay, so as since you guys opened, which I think has been, I think I did the math on that one, and I think it's been about 2.5 years since your soft opening. It was October of 17, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So since that time, what are the accomplishments that you're most proud of that since you started?
Oh, that sounds like a Ray question.
Gosh. Well, I mean, this will sound so sad maybe, but survival. So many small businesses don't survive past their first year. And for a really long time in the beer industry, and craft beer at least, you saw, almost anybody who could get open would be pretty successful and they would make money, pretty quickly. And we got in, even though I think our timing when we were starting to plan this idea was good, it just took so long to open that by the time we got there, we were still in that same place of having to really just white knuckle some stuff. And so I know that maybe sounds very sad, but I'm so proud that we have survived everything that we have been through so far, because nothing has been easy. Nothing has been handed to us. And I feel like we've just shown a lot of mettle.
I think that and our community connection. I think the way that we've run this thing, putting the community first and wanting to connect with the community first, rather than just developing a machine to pump out beers and get distributed all over the place. We decided to focus on the community, really kind of tie in with everything. We're at all of the fests around here. We do things for people. We're constantly, we're donating beers to certain causes and things like that. But we've developed a really tight knit community, and it's really good to see that so many people feel a part of it, and so many people kind of develop their own little communities, while tying us into that, and so that's one of my favorite things.
Okay. Now, on the other side, what are some missteps that you might have taken that you've learned from that you've, adjusted, whether it be a business plan or what have you?
We didn't make any mistakes, Brian. I don't know what you're talking about.
You sounded like my wife, but
No, I'm sure there's plenty of them. No, I think
just kidding, Jen.
I can say I have learned more about us as people. It's almost less of a business journey and more of an inside journey.
Okay.
We've learned so much about us as people, and I don't know. I think there's a lot of armchair quarterbacking you can do. One of the things we were talking about recently was about that soft opening. So we opened up our doors the very moment somebody let us. Because you don't even know when it's going to happen sometimes until about 24 hours before they're going to give you that final, yes, you're clear to go. And we had been waiting so long by that point that we just opened those doors, and we didn't have a ton of beers on tap. And, frankly, they weren't the best that were to come. They were perfectly good, delicious, serviceable beers, but
nothing close to what we can do
exactly. Now. And, I guess we could look at it and say, well, some people say that was a mistake. And to those some people, I say, tell me about your brewery. Because, not to say that we couldn't take the criticism, but just to say that until you're there and until you have waited so long and until you are like just about ready to die because you just need to open those doors and start engaging with people, it's really hard to say anything other than, it's hard to do anything other than what we did.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I guess regret isn't maybe the right word, but yeah. I wish that could have been a little different. I wish that we could have opened with the beers that we had 3 months after that, or even just 3 weeks later.
I would say the one thing that I would have changed a little bit is we went with a very kind of DIY way of doing things. And in some areas, we shouldn't have. While that was perfectly good for most of what we were doing, there were certain pieces of equipment that we ended up purchasing that just sat there and ended up doing nothing because it just made so much more sense to get the pro version of it and actually deal with the pro version of the equipment. So in some cases, it's good to have a DIY aesthetic. It's good to have that kind of philosophy and be able to do things without spending a ton of money because, let's face it, most of these breweries that are opening these days have about $1 million at least to open with. And we did not. We had less than a quarter of that. And so it's good to do that kind of thing. It's good to be able to figure stuff out. And it's important to be able to make good beer with a DIY kind of a system. I just think that, and I know one of the things you're wondering about was what we would do, differently. I can't say that we would do much of anything differently. Just there's some things that we could have done just a little bit better. We could have, had some softer corners on some things. We could have spent our money in a couple of places a little bit better. Those types of things. But aside from that, we really kind of did what we could with we could, and we don't really see how it could have been done much better.
Okay. And yeah, I think that's a very fair answer because I don't, until you actually experience it, you don't really know, what you would have done differently until it's already done. So I just kind of in that same breath, what are, what's some bits of advice you would give to people who wish to become, brewers themselves in the next couple years, like aspiring brewers?
Okay, well,
I've got one.
go ahead.
Whatever you think your revenue is going to be, whatever you're projecting, take a tenth of that and actually make your business plan on it.
Yep.
If that, because that's one thing I can say, and I don't want to call any other brewery out, because when another brewery closes, I cry. That's horrible. But the ones that I have seen close over the last couple of years that opened up and then closed quickly, a lot of it was because they had really over projected what their revenues would be. And cash flow will suck in the first year, or it might even suck worse in the second year. And so if you're over projecting that, you're in for a world of pain.
Yeah.
I think that would be my number one thing.
And no matter how long you've been home brewing for, you are entering into a new field, and understand that you are a freshman going into this. You are not an expert. You won't be an expert for years. And to think anything different is pretty dangerous. That's a precarious kind of stand to have.
Yeah, arrogance will get you nowhere in this business. And I mean, I think we've both seen that time and again.
Yeah.
Just, other freshmen kind of coming up and talking a big talk. And then when you talk like that, guess what? Those guys that you need help from a few months down the road, but you were all like with the puffy chest, they don't really rush to help you anymore.
Yeah. The other thing is, be a part of the community. Actually go out, talk to these people, hang out with them, see what information you can glean from them ahead of time. Ray and I went around and we toured Michigan and a few other places, went to a ton of breweries, and we would always try and find either an owner or a brewer. And one of the first things we would always ask is, how would you do it differently if you could do it again right now? And you got to keep on doing that, because that answer is also going to change. The marketplace changes, the models for success change. Some places it makes a whole lot of sense to open a tap room and focus on that and then build up your distribution. Other places, maybe distribution is the only thing that makes sense because your tap room isn't going to bring in a lot of people in the middle of nowhere. So there are lots of different things to consider, and you got to go around, you got to talk to people who've done it before.
So to that end, there's in Illinois, at least, there's two organizations that people I think should join, even as homebrewers with a plan, and that would be the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild.
Yeah,
I can't remember exactly how much it is. It might be it's much less expensive.
$200 or $150 or something if you haven't opened a brewery yet.
Yeah, if brewing planning is real inexpensive, but I mean, again, you're getting an instant intro to 150 other craft brewers in the state, and all of the good suppliers, and all of the experts in the field, and the legislative support that they do for us.
Yeah.
ICBG is kind of responsible for the fact that so many of us breweries are going to survive this pandemic situation because they mobilized so quickly. They were whispering to us for about a week ahead of the statewide closure of tap rooms and bars and restaurants. So we sort of knew it was coming. And, and they were kind of quietly advising us to, move along to this other thing. And I really believe that they were instrumental in having all of that pass through to allow us to do curbside pickup and local delivery.
Yep.
It's unheard of.
Yep.
So that's one organization that definitely you should join if you're thinking of making a brewery. And the other is for the ladies in the house. That would be the Pink Food Society of Chicago. One of the coolest things has been, I've been part of that group for about a year. And I know ladies at breweries all over, and it's a really different and unique connection versus the kind of connections that Tobias makes. Even he has noticed, like, wow, a lot of people now. And it's just very different, and I think for us, because ladies are a little bit of an anomaly still in the industry, it's extra awesome when we get to band together and provide education and opportunities for experience and employment and all kinds of things. So Those are two groups that people should join if they're thinking about having a brewery.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. All right, so you guys had touched base on it, so we'll kind of segue into the whole virus aspect of business and the whole initial thoughts when the virus was presenting itself. When did you guys have a feeling that business might be impacted? Was it when everyone kind of figured it out, or did you guys already kind of have like a contingency plan maybe designed, a month or two in advance?
I don't know that there was a contingency plan at all. I feel like probably by the end of we're into our third year, and so just by nature of being into our third year and having a little bit more strength of a business, we were actually doing pretty okay up until I would say the end of February. We saw, aside from a couple of larger events that we already had planned, we saw our regular weekly attendance on other nights kind of take a nosedive. But because we had a couple of events that had already been planned that did really well, it wasn't too terribly bad. But I would say it became pretty clear to me by the beginning of March that something was going to happen, and that we just didn't really know what. I actually kept thinking that when the governor closed down bars and restaurants and breweries, I thought that would mean that we were closed down for, period. And so until we got the word that they were going to allow us to do the curbside and local deliveries, I don't know that there really was, if they tell you you're closed, you're closed.
Yeah.
But it was a fairly easy, I don't want to call any of this easy, but it was a fairly reflexive pivot for us. We already had a crowler machine. We were already, familiar with how to use it, how to kind of do a little bit of an assembly line there. And because of all of our experience doing all of the local festivals and events, we already had a really solid handle on how to use our technology to kind of make this change in venue, as it were, work for us. So I think, originally when we first started doing curbside and local delivery, we would take cash, we would take card at the door. But very quickly, we decided it was much, much more responsible to go to a totally contactless situation, so that we're not touching anybody's form of tender. So they order online, they can pick it up. I put it right in their trunk.
Yeah.
They can have it delivered. I'll deliver it a T-Rex head.
Yeah, that's something I was going to bring up in a little bit here about your creativity that you've displayed here. Are you guys able to weather the storm if it's going to be a few more months? Like, because I know that I think there was a article that you posted, Ray, that it was close to half of breweries surveyed said that they wouldn't be able to survive more than 3 months. I think it was something close to 50%. Are you guys what side of the fence are you guys on of that? Are you guys doing well enough now where you think you could survive this if it lasts like another 6 months to a year, or like is it kind of just like a wait and see approach?
It's a little wait and see.
It's planned for the best.
Yeah.
Look, all of these programs that the government has put out, any list that there was for me to put our name on, it got put.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the state grant program, sorry to say, was really, kind of woefully inadequate, if you ask me.
Yeah, it was a pittance in a lake.
It was a $90 million bundle of money that they had to give to restaurants and other hospitality industry organizations. Basically, the email I got at the end of that was, hey guys, so we had 13,000 applications for 700 grants. So see ya, you didn't get one.
Yeah.
And that has felt like the case for a lot of it. But I do think that, a lot of our ability to continue is going to will be determined by how accessible these SBA loans are.
Okay.
So, we're applying early and often, and trying to, I mean, we don't want a handout. I understand that maybe this is the end of the road for a lot of businesses. I get it. And, but we are doing absolutely everything in our power. No, the business that's going on right now isn't enough to go on long term. But what maybe it does for us is force innovation. It's going to force innovation, period. You mentioned earlier when you were asking about art and about our cans. So we've only ever had crowler cans put together. We've never actually canned our beer like in a 16 ounce.
Here's an example, by the way. I'm drinking the Naga Riot right now. So.
Yeah.
But that may be a huge part of how we have to innovate is getting our beer into different kinds of packages, finding different ways to get product out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on what consumership is going to look like. If the consumership of beer remains the same as it has before COVID, and we may have taken a bit of a dip since COVID, but if it remains the same, then we should be able to find ways to fulfill that. So that means no longer in the tap room. Okay, fine. That means we're not paying a bartender anymore. We're paying delivery men, we're not, paying to, keep our tap room at, a nice 70 degrees, instead we're using that money to do something else. Maybe it needs to go into certain kinds of marketing in order to move the product out to the people who want to get it. So yes, it's a restructuring of the business. It's a restructuring of our philosophies. It's a restructuring of our methods. But yeah, I think that we should be able to innovate ourselves well enough to survive for a while. We'll see what that looks like, though.
Okay.
I will say this. I think that being really small really works to our benefit right now because, it makes us more nimble and, more able to do that pivot. When you think about I was pretty sad about this. A few weeks ago, I found out that Argus Brewery in Pilsen closed down.
Argus has been around forever,
yeah.
And they just collapsed.
And when I think about them and some of the other breweries that I've heard, that's happening to, they're much larger than us.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that? What did they used to say? So I think the saying was something about how it's really hard to turn a freight train on a dime.
Yeah.
And that's how I think of it. Those really large places that are very capitalized, lots and lots of stainless that's been leased.
Not a lot of agility.
It's really, really hard for them to make a hard left. And we're close to the ground, man. Our knees are bent. We can, I feel like we can punt pretty easy.
Yeah, and Ray, you were telling me before, like when I picked up my beer last week, that you were that you guys actually own that space, right? So that helps.
No, we don't own our.
Or maybe I misunderstood.
No, but we own all of our equipment.
Okay, got it. That's what you meant. Okay, so that helps as opposed to having to owe people money regardless of how much business you're bringing in.
Right.
So, okay. So, what are some of the ways that you've been going through the new business ideas? Because I know that you were mentioning the T-Rex idea, delivering beers, you're having fun with it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people are appreciating that, and I know you guys are promoting that. Do you guys have are you guys in the constant state of brainstorming other creative ideas like that?
I wouldn't say we're in a constant state of it, but I do have to say that when this entire thing came down, I was in kind of a state of shock. And I'm just sitting there going, holy shit, this is, wow. This is really huge. And I didn't know what was going to happen, what was going to become of anything. But Ray immediately turned this around and said, okay, well, now we're delivering and we're doing curbside pickup. And so get over there, start filling up crowler cans because this is how this is going to work for now. And then it was, you know what, but this has to be fun too. So we're going to do two things. And one was we need to reconnect to the people. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this, this daily top 5 list broadcast, which we've been doing on Facebook Live. And the other thing is I'm going to wear a dinosaur head when I go out and deliver these cans to people.
But you're forgetting the one day that I think that I really took over on this, Anya, because yes, Tobias was a little like walking around dazed for a couple days, and as we all were.
Yeah.
But this one day, it was a Wednesday, I woke up, I got some toilet paper that was sitting in the tap room, going to go unused.
Yeah.
And I branded it.
Started branding it. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
A Facebook post, and I said, and I actually borrowed some wording from my former Apple days, and I said something like, because we at Rabid Brewing believe in a complete solution, we're going to offer you a roll of toilet paper free with every 3-pack of crowlers.
Right.
And I think that what Tobias is, what Tobias is talking about, what I'm saying is all to go back to our primary purpose, which is, you would think that our primary purpose is really all about, intoxication and beer. And, yeah, it is. But really, we are purveyors of fun. And we just happen to use beer as our main vehicle. But I believe...
That's right. If cocaine were legal, we'd be craft cocaine producers.
Craft cocaine.
Oh, man. But I think that ultimately, though, if we stay the course and continue to think about how can we purvey fun, whether that is giving away TP or delivering in a T-Rex head or doing our silly top 5 lists every day and making people see our mugs or, whatever it is that's next. I feel like staying true to our brand is going to be one of the differentiators that sees us on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you seen other fellow brewers like adjusting themselves in terms of how they're approaching it?
Yeah. I had to run out to Hailstorm to pick up a bunch of crowler lids one day, and I went in there, and everybody in there looked like kind of deer in headlights, which was kind of funny. I mean, they've got a lot of space,
yeah,
and so they allowed me to walk in there, and everybody was still social distanced and everything, but yeah, they were doing the crowler curbside pickup too, and you could see them all going through the exact same process that we were, and you could see them running around and just getting stuff ready, and there were other people coming in, picking up their 3-packs and walking out. And so, yeah, there was, and they were excited to see me and say, how are you guys weathering this? Are you guys doing okay? And I'm like, yeah, we're doing okay. And it felt good to just have that connection with them. But yeah, we're seeing other brewers doing a lot of the similar things. One Trick Pony, of course, is, they're even selling kegs at this point. So, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it. Skeleton Key has been doing something really cool where they, because they're very limited. They did not have a crowler machine.
Yeah.
And so they've been doing this thing that they call Skeleton Key in a Box. And it's a growler of your choice of beer with various things. Sometimes it's like snacks that follow along a theme. There was one that was really cool last week where it had the growler, and then it had a small succulent plant for you to take care of, and it had a little tiny paint canvas and easel with paint. And each of these Skeleton Key in a Boxes comes with a kind of like a private Zoom meeting with the brewers. So
Oh, wow.
you can sit there, you can get your delivery of your beer earlier in the day and then sit there in the evening and drink your beer.
And talk to the brewer.
Talk to the brewer.
That's neat.
So I mean, I've seen an awful lot of really cool innovation and using of technology, using of kind of whatever you have available to you. And it reminds me of I'm going to sound so old, but it reminds me of the good old days a little bit, where people, you know what I mean? Where it was so less corporate and so much more grassroots. And we just have to find different ways to connect to our customers and to our people. There are people.
Yeah, if we pull out of this with an even deeper personal connection to all of our customers, that's a good thing, So
yeah, and everyone's really looking for connections right now because like there's a lot of lonely people right now. We're like between you guys and like me, like we're lucky we have like people that we can live with and that aren't gonna they'll drive us crazy a little bit and I'm sure we'll drive them crazy, but you have like someone you could actually talk to, whereas some people are stuck in this by themselves and if you could brighten somebody's day for a few minutes, like that can make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So are you guys already picturing who knows when it'll be, but are you guys already picturing the first day back to the brewery when people are allowed to go back?
Oh yeah.
Oh man. yeah, for sure. And one of the things we've talked about is how Rabid is really like all the people who show up there, people hug each other all the time. And so, what that's going to look like in the future, I don't know, but there are some people out there I really want to hug. I miss them a lot, So.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things I think that's been on my mind lately is just wondering if things like our occupancy load will be changed. And I don't want to worry about things that haven't happened yet, but it seems kind of likely actually. It's, that's part of why people are having a hard time social distancing sometimes right now. How do you social distance if you're all of a sudden in a space and there's too many people in it? There's not enough room for people to have distance. So, in addition to wondering if people are going to hug as much as they used to, I wonder, just from a business stance, if we're going to be allowed to have that same kind of occupancy, which can be good and bad, to be honest. If something is really limited, maybe you'll hurry up and go.
Yeah, I would expect that there is going to be some kind of occupancy limitation at first. I don't think that we're going to see very large concerts for a little bit. I'm really hoping that that's not the case for the Faith No More concert coming up in the fall, but I think that, places like ours where you can be together and, do like, maybe we're going to be limited to 30 people in our place at a time, something like that. We have occupancy for 100, but maybe it's just 30. And maybe it'll be like that for a little while. And that's okay. It's something. So, obviously the most important thing here is to stamp this thing out and get rid of it. So that it's not screwing us up like this and killing people.
And it seems like we've been doing a good job as a society for the most part. I mean, there's some areas that are affected worse than others that might disagree, but as a whole, as a country, it seems like, it seemed like it was, once it was here, like there was no way to avoid it once the social distancing began because it already started. But it seems like we've, hopefully avoided the worst. So,
Yes. Well, I think that, the numbers that we're starting to show, when we saw those first models and they started saying, hey, with the way things are right now, we're going to be screwed and we're going to lose 1 million people. Now that's not going to be the case anymore because we all started doing the social distancing. We started doing the things that we needed to do in order to prevent this from happening. What we're doing today is going to affect our numbers in a week and in 2 weeks. And what we did yesterday, those are affecting our numbers today. And so right now the numbers are starting to look better for us all. And so I think, we got to keep on doing stuff.
Okay. Yep, I agree. All right. Well, let's go into a theme that your bar has: the sumo.
Oh yeah, sumo Saturday.
So this being a sports podcast, normally I think this is the first mention of sumo I've had in 106 podcasts. So I was overdue to have sumo discussed here anyway. So let's just say it was a long time coming. But was to give a little bit of a background, you have a sumo themed Saturdays where you show, is it clips from YouTube or just like live stream from somewhere?
Yeah, so no, it's not a live stream. What happens is there are sumo bashos, which are big sumo tournaments for Grand Sumo that occurs every other month. And so what we do is we just play those bashos every Saturday night until the next one is out. And so usually it takes about one Saturday night, we'll get through about half of the bouts in a single basho. And so we usually end up repeating it a couple of times before the new basho starts.
And that's like a tournament, right? That's like one of
right.
So like I think I read somewhere that they have like 6 major tournaments a year or something like that. That's like okay.
Right. Every other month. Yeah.
Okay.
So
what got you into sumo, like just from a personal perspective?
We've got this huge wall that we project stuff onto, and so we were doing stuff like some samurai movies and various other things like guys building huts in the middle of nowhere, and we always wanted something just a little bit weird, offbeat. We weren't going to be playing a baseball game, because it's just not what our place is. And so Ray one day just popped into her head, I guess, and she looked up sumo wrestling and put it on. Everybody became instantly fascinated with this. And we started watching it. We decided, we did that on Saturday. Let's just make this Sumo Saturday. So every Saturday we started putting it on. And it's been about a year and a half now, maybe a little less than that. A little over now, because it was February of last year. It was the first time we put it on.
Okay.
And it was the January tournament that we watched of 2019, and so, or was it 2018? I don't even know anymore.
No.
Everything's just blending together.
Yeah, right. So it's been a little while, and even all this time later, I'm still learning, various terms and stuff. Like I'm still trying to get used to the idea of calling them rikishi instead of sumo wrestlers. Yeah,
the terminology. I saw some of the terms, and I didn't write any down, but I did. There were a lot of interesting facts that I did not know about sumo, and I didn't realize how controlled their lives were by the stables that they're in. Like there's so much stuff that they can't do. Like I didn't know that they couldn't drive, for example. I mean, I figured it would be tough to drive anyways, being their size. But I wasn't aware that they're not allowed to drive, or at least what I Googled, because I guess there was an accident way back when that either seriously injured or killed one of their sumo wrestlers, and they said, and I guess they have the authority to say you guys can't drive anymore, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's I hadn't heard that one. That's pretty extreme, but they are definitely highly protective of these guys.
Yeah, they basically raise them like veal.
Yeah, kind of.
So yeah, they got a little box they go to, and then they can wrestle. There are a few things that are funny like that, and I think it's partly cultural. But one of them that always cracks me up is they have this stew that they eat that's like their primary meal, and it's
full of vegetables and stuff. And these guys eat between 4,000 and 10,000 calories a day. And think about that, 4,000 and 10,000 calories a day. That's just insane. But that's something like, what is that, like 15 Big Macs in a day or something? It's kind of gross. But they eat it in a form of a stew that's full of vegetables and usually a meat. And the meat can be, a lot of different things, but it is preferred that the meat is chicken. And the reason that they prefer the meat to be chicken is because chickens, like sumo wrestlers, stand on their own 2 feet, like a good sumo wrestler should. So,
is that
unlike a cow that uses 4, or a fish that swims? So yeah, you pick up certain like little reasonings like that throughout the culture of sumo, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah, and another one that I wrote down that I thought was fascinating was that I guess there's, I don't know if it's all sumos, but there's some that are so big that they can't reach around a wipe, and they have like an apprentice that does it for them.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought of that. But yeah, some of these dudes are huge. Like, I don't think that they can really, I'm not even sure some of them can slap their own butt cheeks, like their arms are constantly just kind of floating out to the sides. But yeah, they're pretty freaking huge, man.
But they're also pretty limber. I think I wasn't prepared the first time I put a sumo on the wall. And remember, we have what is that, a 25-foot wall that it's being displayed on, so it's larger than life. But I wasn't prepared to see a 450-pound man go into a full knee bend squat.
Yeah.
With their butt like literally inches from the ground. So even though they can't get their arms down, they're very limber of leg.
They're huge, but they're also powerful and flexible. Very flexible. They work on flexibility a lot. In fact, that is one of their key things. I guess they do that for like hours a day. So, as well as everything else that they do during the day.
So what I've gathered here then is that you've kind of learned about it as you've put it up there. You didn't know much about it before.
No, we became fans along with everybody else who walked into the bar and go, "Oh, sumo! How about that?" It was also just like so much fun because the matches are so quick.
Yeah.
That it was really easy for people to just look up, watch a quick match, go back to a conversation, continue drinking their beer, whatever they're doing, and just be entertained for a brief 8 seconds, to 15 seconds, because these things are over pretty fast. But what's really funny is watching people who have never seen it before suddenly get into it, and like suddenly you have a table of people who are cheering at the wall, and they're all making bets with each other, and some of them are basically deciding to qualify their bet. They're like, I'm just gonna vote for the guy with the biggest tits. That guy has the biggest tits. He's gonna win the match, and a lot of times they win. But so
yeah, it's like betting on a horse based on their name or something like that.
Yeah, right.
You're not really using any scientific models here.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend who watches sumo, and he actually asked some questions, and I don't know how to pronounce some of these guys' names, but one of them you mentioned about the tits he was asking who had funnier tits, and I don't know how to pronounce Aoyama or Kantanwaka. Do you have an opinion on that? I know I'm butchering their names.
I am gonna go with Aoyama. That man has got the biggest, funniest looking tits I've ever seen. Every time he comes out, I will always yell, "Aoyama, it's Mr. Tits!" and everybody looks up at the wall and they're all like, "Whoa!" So yeah, I'm definitely going with him on that one.
And I haven't been there in a while, but I mean, the good thing is, like you said, you're not the type of bar that people are expecting to go to watch the game at, like the game, like,
Yeah.
and I'm a sports guy, but I know the difference. Like, you guys have your thing, and you know that I'm not gonna come there if it's a normal Sunday. Like, if I'm a football fan, like, that's fine, and you get that.
Bears game on, probably not gonna be.
That's fine,
yeah.
but I mean, but there's a time and a place for everything, and if people know that going in, they should expect you to just turn on the game because, hey, they want to watch the game. Like, they kind of need to know, like, hey, this isn't what you do. This is, we're showing alternative. I remember watching something that you guys put on where they were like rolling on logs on a lake.
Oh yeah.
And it was like a nearby lake in Orland Park, I think. They were doing like some like world championship, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, what kind of revenue is in this? But I mean, so, some of these interesting activities that that people do, like that's the thing that I enjoy going to your place to watch. Is like, I know I'm not gonna normally Google like some of these things that or you're Googling or finding on YouTube. I'm like, this is just entertainment,
Yeah, come in one Sunday, watch some curling.
Yeah. So
we even had one time we had a marble rolling championship. That was pretty bizarre.
Well, I do appreciate the depths that you guys reach, like, to find some of these things. It's kind of like searching the Pacific Ocean bottom for rare forms of life here. I apprate it.
Absolutely.
We like to think of ourselves as showers of the barbaric sports.
Yep.
Sumo. There's been some wrestling. I like to have some derby on the wall on Sundays, some roller derby, because you need to see some girls hit each other.
Yeah. And you're and not for self promotion, but you do derby, so I'm.
Yeah.
Well, it helps me be better at it if I'm watching it constantly. And it's especially when you're watching it on that huge wall and you can really get in there and see some of the positioning and the calls and everything. It's a way to practice without practicing.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it. I forgot the name of their team, but we, like many years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we saw the professional women's team in the Chicago. Is it like Windy City something? I forgot the...
Rollers.
Yeah.
I forgot what team they were playing, but it was like near UIC's campus. I forgot what the name of the arena was, but it's pretty entertaining. I went with a friend who actually refed it at one point, so he shared a lot of insight about that. So yeah, those are the kinds of things that, like, and I'm sure like you got people picking your brains about it when you're showing it on the big screen, like what is this like, and you'd be proud to share a little bit of information about it, so maybe they become interested in it themselves.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's always been one of the best parts about the stuff that we show is people are curious about it. And so instead of it just being a look at that guy, he sucks, why did they ever draft him conversation, it's wait a second, how does this work exactly? And then we have answers for that. I can't tell you why certain people were drafted, but I can tell you, that it takes 10 years for you to be an official Grand Sumo hairdresser. So, yeah. In order to do the hair of the guys at the top, the yokozunas, you have to have been a professional sumo hairdresser for 10 years.
Do you suppose that some of the training involves being a professional sumo booty wiper?
I don't know.
To that end, I mean, maybe I'm sure that a sumo guy could not probably clip his own toenails or fingernails.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah,
maybe it's like a whole butler kind of situation.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how you prepare for that. Like, but I mean, I guess there's, somebody's got to be doing it. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. These guys get fawned over. So it like they live terribly. I mean, like it's really kind of rough living that they do. But then when it's showtime, then these guys all have people coming in giving them manicures, pedicures, and all. The hairdresser and everybody grooming them, washing them. they probably have 3 people with scrub brushes on them for showers and stuff. I don't know. I've never actually watched a sumo shower. I'm just making that up. But
when Rabid reopens, that's what it's going to be.
You mean that's not on your Pornhub search there? I digress. But
yeah. So, did you have some other questions?
Yeah, there was. I was gonna say listener questions, but I basically just asked my friend Jason, who you guys know, because I know he would have some insightful questions, being a brewer himself, aspiring brewer, wanting to be professional with it. I mean, and in terms of selling the business of selling beer, he was wondering, like, how has selling beer changed your mindset of brewing styles or beers that you never would have considered brewing before? Is there like certain styles that you guys have been brewing that you didn't anticipate brewing, like when you first started 2.5 years ago, based on the current market?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So yes, we are brewing beers that we didn't really anticipate because basically as time went on, we started developing a broader menu, and we wanted to try and hit something for everyone, so that any beer lover of any kind could walk in and dig what they're getting, or maybe even non-beer lovers could walk in and find something that they would like. So when we started out, I didn't really think much about fruit beers. And now Hext, our Blackberry Apricot Ale, is one of our top selling beers. I didn't really think about, some of these really adjunct heavy stuff. I didn't really think much of them. And Belgians, I never thought I would bother brewing a Belgian just because I don't like Belgians. Then I had a Belgian that I kind of liked, and it was like, and people started asking for Belgians, started brewing some Belgians, and next thing you know, people are telling us that our Belgians are, some of the best Belgians that they've ever had. And which is weird because we don't consider it our forte, and it's certainly not something at the top of the list of personal taste. So there are definitely certain things that we didn't anticipate, yeah.
Okay. And so, as kind of on the same line of questioning, how have people's tastes and preferences altered your own opinions on beer? Is a question that he had.
Well, like the whole Belgian thing, I hadn't had enough to really understand that there was some Belgians out there that I liked. And I really, I enjoy some of these kind of like shockingly interesting beers. All of a sudden you get a beer that tastes like an horchata. I kind of dig that stuff now. So people have requested a lot of this stuff, and we've made it, and by request almost, and as a result we end up liking it.
So I'm guessing you just so people telling you, it would obviously have to be people sitting at the bar saying, like, man, you guys really gotta try to go in. I would love to have a Belgian, or like, you guys need to get a fruit beer out there. Like, is that, I'm guessing that's the kind of the extent of it, right? Like, a lot of people just requesting it.
Yeah, there is no end to people telling us what we need to do.
Yeah. Man, I wish I had $1.
But what ends up happening is you hear a certain number of people say, "Do you have anything like this?" And you hear that a bunch of times, and you're like, you know what? I'm hearing that a bunch. Maybe we should try it out.
Yes to that, but what I also find kind of useful is having, when someone comes in and says, I don't like hops, or I hate IPAs, having a deeper dive conversation with them about what it is that they don't like. Because I think something that we've seen happen over the last 10 years or so is a shift from what a hoppy beer means.
Yeah.
A hoppy beer, it, by definition, is a beer that has a lot of hops in it. But what kind of hops they are and when they're added and what the intention is for them and what it is that you're trying to pull out of them is very different now than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago, it was, you didn't want to have a hazy beer. It meant you did something wrong.
Yeah.
Now hazy is everything. So, I find sometimes having those deep dive conversations with somebody who comes in kind of with a chip on their shoulder maybe and says, well, I don't like hops at all. Frequently, I'll end up putting the hoppiest beers we have in front of them and they, drink them like they're the sweetest wine that ever happened.
Yep.
So, yes to what Tobias said, that a lot of it is that we're taking that suggestion, but I think what we're doing really well too is changing people's mind about what they think they know. Some of it is like, it's like when your mom said, would give you a new food and she would say, well, you have to eat 3 bites before you can say you're done. It's kind of that same thing. You almost can't say you don't like it until you put it in your mouth.
Sure. And I'm sure you guys offer like, cause normally I'll just take the chance of having a whole pint of something. Like, so you guys might offer me like a sample, but you guys offer samples to people who might be curious, I'm sure. Like,
I usually like to ask a lot of questions anyway, though, because, I find that if somebody comes in and just asks for a sample and you don't ask any questions, they're going to ask for a sample of the thing that they're going to hate. Yeah. That's just been my experience, that then they're like, oh, I'm not impressed, versus me taking the time to ask 1 or 2 questions. What do you normally drink? What's your favorite beer? What beer do you absolutely hate? Or, the non-beer drinkers. Okay, what kind of wine do you normally take? Being able to sort of parse some of that out allows me to even put a sample in front of them that I know they're going to love.
Sure. Okay. All right, and the last question from Jason here was if you guys thought your brewery was heading in the direction you thought it would when you first started, or if you've had to make a lot of adjustments. I know you kind of touched base on this a little bit, but maybe you could address it again or address it in a different way.
It's better than I thought it would be. In a lot of ways. No, I think our beer is better than I thought it would be. Our community is so much tighter than I never expected that. I never expected our community to feel like our family.
Yeah.
And so in so many ways it has been, look, I'll just say this. Yes, we want to be open in 6 months and we want to be kicking all forms of ass. But if I remember the night before the shutdown happened, I looked around at our little menagerie of people there. And I said, if this is it, man, what a wild success we were. We made delicious beer that we wanted to drink, that other people wanted to drink. We made a beautiful place in which to drink it. And somehow we made all of these amazing friends. And so I feel like we're an incredible success. Even by that now, it'd be great if we made lots of money too, but that's almost secondary at this point because all of these other things have been so rich and so life-filling.
Yeah.
This time will tell us a lot about ourselves here. Like, just the tough times always define us, I think. So, if
they do.
If you could survive this, then you're going to come out of it, way better than you were before. I feel like so.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No. If you got any more sumo questions, I'm happy to answer them. But final thoughts, final thoughts. I feel like we were going through that kind of thing every day. We really, COVID is like at the beginning and end of everything that we do today, and we're doing these days for everybody, and it sucks. But like I said earlier, we need to stay the course. We are making improvements, and eventually we won't have to watch sports that have no crowds. Eventually we will have, our lives back, and we will be able to go out and talk to people, and we won't have to, worry about a stream of little particles coming out and wafting behind us as we run down a track, and what that might do to somebody behind us. Those things eventually won't be so much of an issue. And hang in there, everybody.
All right. Well, I appreciate both of you coming on, and I'm always rooting for you, and I'm glad that you joined I'm glad that I got to know you through the brewery, and I'm glad I've gotten to become very friendly with you guys, and I'm wishing nothing but the best for you guys, and hoping.
Brian, I want to confirm something because I feel like we sort of met you and your wife sort of before the brewery, because if I remember right, you used to live up in Albany Park or somewhere up there, and I feel like that Jen knew Katie, who owns Chroma Cake.
Yeah,
right?
I think I remember some kind of connection before. Yeah, I don't remember the exact connection. She would have to remind me about that, but.
But I just think that that's really cool because what I'm trying to point out is that there is an incredible amount of interrelation that we all have, and so my friend Kate, I haven't seen her in many years, and she lives way up north, but the way that she supported us when we were opening was she knew she had a friend who lived in Homewood and made sure she came to visit. And and that's something that I think we can all do for each other is, if you've got another favorite brewery that you love but you're not close by, share their stuff on social media all the time. Tell your friends who are nearby to patronize them. Small businesses of all kinds everywhere are going to be vital. They're going to be the ones that really kind of carry us all through this next bit of time, and that support them any way you can.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, again, thanks again, and be posted shortly. And everyone, once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you guys again next week.